and welcome to episode 28 of Universal Adapter. This is a show where two Brits, one who stayed put, that's me, and one who got out,
that's me,
discuss the relative merits of our current home countries. Each week we pick a new topic and discuss who has it better. And for this week and for the next several weeks, as you can probably hear by just how gosh darn excited she is, Sarah is no longer... Oh, I was going to say no longer with us. That's not...
Yes,
that's technically correct.
We're recording this from beyond the grave. Matt's become a medium in the last 2 weeks. It's very impressive.
Sarah is in... Sarah, tell us, where are you?
I am in Victoria, which is in British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada.
Ooh.
Ooh, indeed. It's very nice. It's apparently the most British town, or city, town/city in Canada. So I'm feeling right at home, even though it doesn't... It reminds me more of New Zealand than it does of Britain, but still, I'm liking it.
What is meant when they say the most British town or city?
I think I've struggled to get this. I think because it's maybe one of the older ones. It's got a lot of old buildings.
I mean, it's called Victoria, so that checks out.
Yeah, I'm about to say there's an influence there, which I'm sure you're picking up. Do you know, like, sometimes, like, especially like the Midwest of America, they have those like huge roads that are just massively wide. Like, they don't have that here. The roads are a normal size. That's what very much makes you think of Britain. But it's still built on a grid system.
I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a good grid system.
No, it makes navigating a lot easier. You're like, oh, I missed my turning. Well, I'll just go down the next one. It's in a minute. It's going to get me exactly back where I wanted to go.
I mean, as a geographer, how do you feel about grid systems? Is it too much human imposition, or are they handy?
Oh, I'm a fan, definitely. When I got home, it annoyed me how I had to pay a lot more attention on Google Maps to get around, basically, because the roads don't necessarily all link up. Whereas, yeah, New Zealand, just toddle around and you get to learn where you are pretty quickly.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I'm trying to wrap my head around what the different parts of the country are. So the country you're staying in is Canada.
Yes.
That much I know. And then there's a province.
Yes. Yes.
So the province is
British Columbia.
Okay. And then is it just city?
Yeah, and then you just go to city.
Which is Victoria.
Yes. They don't have counties. Because apparently aren't enough people.
So how many... Wait, no, I'll get there in the end. Provinces are there?
Oh, on the top of my head, I want to say 11, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh, there's 10 provinces and 3 territories.
That's a nice round number, although unlucky for some if you got a total of 13. And I feel like the quiz should probably stop here, but next week I would like to know what the difference is between a territory and a province.
So I think, essentially, territories are told what to do by the Parliament of Canada, whereas a province can sort of decide for itself, but under Canadian law.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a very baby basic description of the difference. But that's essentially it. So,
we've learned a little bit about the governance of Canada, and now we should probably get on to our topic du jour. That's French, like Canada.
That's true. I have a little vocabulary lesson every time I go to the supermarket. Because, like, especially if things are facing the wrong way, you get the French side, and you're like, oh, I think that is... I'm trying to think what I did it on the other day. I don't know, strawberry ice cream. Win. Yes, it was.
Ooh. Do all of the packaging have two faces, a French face and a English face?
Yes, it's either on, like, one side and the other side, or it's just written one under the other.
Ooh.
But everything has English and French written on.
So we're also going to be producing a French-Canadian version of this podcast as well, where I speak in English and Sarah does her half fluently in French.
Mais oui.
So look out for that one. Bonjour, je m'appelle Universal Adapter.
J'ai un onze. Hang on. I am one.
One of what?
You always say your age. You're like, Bonjour, je m'appelle Sarah. J'ai 11 ans. So basically like, hello, my name's Sarah, I'm 11. Because the French apparently are very keen on you saying your age when you introduce yourself.
And preferably what sort of domicile you live in.
Yeah.
How many rooms it has, how many floors it has. Those are two good.
Yeah. What colour your school uniform is. That was an important lesson, I remember.
And how many fish and siblings you have, preferably in that order.
Smashed it.
Wonderful. And after that diversion, the episode topic for this week, we're talking about our country's sauce.
We're getting saucy.
Which isn't to say that we're going to be talking about the origin of our given country. Instead, we're going to be talking about some of the wet food that they are most famous for.
Indeed.
Couldn't think of a saucy synonym.
So, tasty fluids.
Okay, yeah, this is the tasty fluid episode. We keep on coming up with these to keep you guys on your toes, and hopefully you're not eating as we do so.
Fingers crossed. Well, it should be much better from here on in. So, which of the noble sauces produced by the United Kingdom have you brought to the table?
Well, I made the decision last week because it was on the table on which I record, and having said it, I felt a little bit inadequate because I didn't know just how representative it was, and also at the same time I didn't know how much reach it had outside of the UK. But having done my research, I'm ready to champion the one, the only Worcestershire sauce.
Yes, and they have that in Canada as well. So
does it come in a paper bag?
I haven't actually seen it, but I've just I've had a long conversation with one of my Canadian friends about how to pronounce it, because he was trying to call it like Worcestershire, and I was like, it's Worcestershire, and he's like, never in a million years is it Worcestershire. I was like, it is.
They have pronunciation guides on both the UK and the US website, so
that's good.
Apparently they feel like even we need a little bit of a helping hand.
Yeah.
With Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, but why did you ask if it comes in a paper bag? I've never seen it in a paper bag. Also, it's a liquid.
Sorry, they package the bottle inside a paper bag, like it's some sort of illicit, like prohibited substance. Apparently, the reason why they do it in the US is because they used to ship it over the Atlantic, and lots of glass bottles in the hull of a ship, they are prone to smashing together and then breaking. So they would package them in paper as well and send it over to the US, and they just quite like the look of it, so they kept it as was, and it makes it feel kind of oldie worldy, and it gives it a little je ne sais quoi French.
Interesting. Well, I will keep an eye out for that next time I'm in the supermarket.
Yeah, definitely do. And from the shores of Canada, which liquid juice have you bought for us?
Well, I have bought the one, the only. It's probably the only Canadian-based sauce I can actually name at the moment. Maple syrup.
Ooh.
Indeed.
We're getting the
Breakfast
stereotypes
delight.
out of the way early, so that as Sarah becomes more acclimatized, she doesn't have to. We don't have to go for the low-hanging leaves.
Isn't it normally low-hanging fruit?
I know, but I realise that does the maple tree
Maple
have
tree.
any fruit?
I mean, it must have some kind of fruit, but I don't know. None noteworthy would be my...
Maple nuts.
That sounds quite nice, but I doubt they'd be sweet.
They don't come freshly glazed.
like at the German Christmas market. Just drop off a tree, cinnamon and maple flavoured, delightful. But no, I've got the lovely maple syrup, which I thought would be a lot cheaper here, considering it's made here. Mm-hmm. But it's not vastly cheaper than back home. But it's actually all made in Eastern Canada. So I guess, to be honest, if you're making something in Eastern Canada, you have to ship it just as far to get it to the UK as you do to get it to British Columbia. So, never mind.
Being expensive, I mean, have you found that you've eaten lots of it? That you've been fed lots of it when you were visiting Canadian residents?
Well, actually, I only realised today, I literally haven't eaten maple syrup since arriving in Canada. I know. What a trope I'm missing out on. But I haven't been out for breakfast. And it just hasn't cropped up as of yet. But I do like it. I'm a big fan. No, I debated getting some maple cured salmon.
Oh.
And then I didn't.
Oh. What a roller coaster of emotion. The excitement, the tragedy, we bring it all.
It's just, I think it's the reality of our show. That is why people are so invested in it. There's a lot more interesting things to it other than my non-purchasing of it, which could segue us nicely into our first round.
Okay, take it away.
That is it. We are discussing, like in any good superhero movie, the origin story of our favoured not viscous materials which we are presenting. Would you like to go first or second? Because there's no other options.
I mean, I am happy to go first.
Okay, take it away.
So, Worcestershire sauce. The origin of Worcester sauce has been shrouded in myth for a long time. Lea Perrins, the sort of premier variety, was first sold in 1837. And the way that they came up with their recipe was apparently that in 1835, 2 years earlier, there was a Lord Sandys who returned from a trip to Bengal with a recipe for spicy sauce. And he found two chemists in Worcester, John Wheely Lee and William Henry Perrins, and gave them his list of ingredients, his recipe, and was like, I can't find anything like this anywhere in this country. I want you to brew me up a batch, and you don't have anything better going on. It's the 1800s. I'm a lord. Do what I say. So,
wait, so they were chemists?
Yeah, in the same way that Coke was invented by a chemist as well.
Was it? As in Coca-Cola?
Yes. And presumably cocaine has had something to do with chemists over the course of... I mean, it used to be medicinal, both Coca-Cola and cocaine.
True.
And also, so did Lea Perrins. They billed it at first when they were advertising it. They were like, it is a fine... Basically, it will cure what ails you, as well as making your steak taste tastier.
I can see it be a spoonful of that would really clear your sinuses.
Sorry, I was contemplating live on air doing just that to see if it had any effect, and then...
Well, that's what I was about to suggest.
But
maybe don't. It might be gross.
That seems like a poor YouTube stunt, which I feel like we're above here at Universal Adapter.
That's true. Also, we wouldn't be able to see your face, so the reaction would just be you going, oh! No, don't bother. But maybe after the show, and you can let us know how it goes.
So they create it, they mix it up according to this recipe, and they taste it, and apparently it tastes bloody awful, because it's essentially fermented fish in vinegar with tamarind and other salts, molasses, spices and flavourings. So they have secret ingredients as well.
Oh.
But yeah, vinegary fish didn't taste great, so they left it in the barrels that they brewed it in their cellar of their chemist shop, pharmacy.
I think that's normally where a chemist works.
Yeah,
Or maybe an apothecary back in those days.
that's a nice pull. So they left the casks in the basement, and then they returned to it several months later and realised that it actually tasted, because of course you would go in for another taste, a year and a half later. They found that it had sort of mellowed and become quite palatable.
Ah.
And then it was at that point, sort of almost 2 years after they'd started, that they started marketing it and selling it. And they had some problems with people trying to imitate their recipe and try to pass it off as their own. So they went to court to try and get a patent on Worcester sauce, but they found that they weren't able to because they couldn't conclusively prove that they'd come up with it first. But they obviously were able to trademark Lea Perrins, and they were also able to call it, and this I think is still their tagline, I think they still put it on their bottles, the original and best.
Ah, that's interesting. I didn't know there were any fake Worcestershire sauces.
No, there are other brands are available.
Well, clearly I've just been a traditionalist my entire life until now.
So that's the story, but there's reason to believe that it is all lies.
Oh,
I know.
why?
Well, so there was a Lord Sandys, this guy who reputedly went to India to find this spicy sauce recipe, but from all the records of the time, the particular lord who they're probably talking about, there's no record that he actually ever went to Bengal or even visited India.
Lying scoundrel.
I know. And the whole, they tried it and it wasn't very good, and then they tried it again later, like some sort of Goldilocks and the Three Bears rubbish. There are people who seem to think that that's, again, just sort of a fantasy sort of invented to make the story more interesting. Because the whole idea of this, like I say, it doesn't sound very appetizing when I put it this way, but I'm going to keep on using this phrase. The whole idea of having this fermented fish sauce, the ideas for those, the recipes for those go back like hundreds, if not thousands of years, and the way of preparing them has always been the same, in that you have to ferment them, so you have to leave them for quite a while before they, do their thing. So
yeah.
Again, the idea that they would kind of accidentally stumble upon it months later is a little bit fishy.
Hey. I like it as a story, though.
Yeah, the life and lies of Lea Perrins.
So, wait, was his name Lea Perrins?
So it was
it Mr. Lee and Mr. Perrins?
Yeah, so it was two guys. It was, I think I mentioned them earlier. It's John Wheely Lee and William Henry Perrins, I believe. Yes.
But you did say that. I just wasn't listening. I do apologise.
So there you go. That's the origin story.
Wow, that was very interesting. I liked it. I knew it had Empire influences in it, with the fact that it's a British sauce, but it's spicy and peppery. And I'm sure I was watching some cooking show, and they referred to it as like Empire food. I was like, I see your point there.
So, Sarah, what's the origin of maple syrup? And don't just say a tree.
No, I looked into it a bit more closely than that. It's a little difficult to put an exact pinpoint on when. We can't even say it was invented, but discovered, because it was used by the First Nations people in Eastern Canada way before Europeans rocked up onto the scene. Mm-hmm. So, no one's entirely sure when they found out, but a while ago is the gist. And it's pretty fascinating how they. I think it's fascinating. So you can always take that term with a pinch of salt when I say it. How they get it out of the tree, counting this as its origin story.
Okay.
So what they do is so during the autumn, that's when the tree produces all this very sugary sap, and it stores it over winter. And then the way you can extract it is because in very late winter, early spring, the temperature inside the tree is actually higher than the temperature outside of the tree, and this creates a positive pressure, which if you then stick a cut in the tree, or like almost like a tap, you can literally like stick a tap into the tree.
I was going to say, I thought is that not the official term, that you tap the tree to get the syrup out?
I think you're right, actually, yes, tapping. So yeah, you stick a tap into the tree, and...
Tapping, not tapping. As in, like, you don't just go and, like...
Oh, just give it a knock. No, you actually have to... So you can stick a tap on your tree, and then the syrup all drips out. Because it's warmer inside, the pressure is higher, and it then flows into the cold outside. So you can do it as a totally eco-friendly process if you wanted to. You just literally hook it up, and the syrup drains itself out, which is quite interesting. And they actually refer to this time as either the sugar month or the maple moon, which I think is a really nice phrase.
Oh man. Is there a Canadian horror film about a werewolf who tears trees apart to get the maple syrup, called Maple Moon?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But if not, I will definitely be pitching it to Netflix as a special.
Fantastic.
Like, the sap itself isn't really that sweet. You need 40 litres of sap to make 1 litre of maple syrup.
Ooh.
So you basically put it in massive vats and boil it until all the water's gone off, and it's as sugary as you would like. Or they turn it into sugar, or what they used to do a lot is put it onto snow, and it makes it like a toffee-like consistency, because of course it freezes quite quickly.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
Have you done it?
Sorry?
Have you done it?
No, first of all, I saw it on the internet, and then I met a student who had travelled from Canada, and she was saying that, you, like, the number of times you freeze it, because the water and the sugary bits sort of have different freezing temperatures, so you can kind of, if you freeze it multiple times over, then you can make it as refined as you like.
Oh, fascinating. Well, that's good. But then my favourite fact about it was that a lot of the First Nations groups which used maple syrup, a lot of them were matriarchal societies, so owning and harvesting the maple trees fell to the women of the group, and it was passed down the female line. So not only is it yummy, but it is a feminist syrup.
Wonderful.
But I just think, I like it. There's no faffing about with it, really. It just comes out the tree.
Yeah, that's well, I mean, then you do need to get the 40 litres out to make the 1 litre of actual usable syrup. So it's not all easy work.
Yeah, but just like letting something boil doesn't sound that labour intensive.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I don't know. Get me down a maple syrup factory and I'll tell you what it's like.
Oh, definitely. I mean, is that part of your itinerary for your Canadian journeys?
It wasn't on the itinerary, but if I go to Eastern Canada, maybe I'll see if I can get that. They don't really have maple trees in this bit of Canada, so, which is a shame. But yeah, when I head over to Quebec, they produce most of the maple syrup. Or maybe I'll see what I can find.
So, who do we think has the best origin story then?
Well, you admitted yours is probably not true.
Yes. Okay, yeah, no, I did kind of shoot myself in the foot there.
Despite the fact it's very interesting and it's maybe more of a story than mine. Mine's just sort of... It's not really a story. It's just they already knew about it. And then it just happened. Like, it's like saying how the origin story of eating fish or a berry. Like, just found it.
I mean, yours also goes for the product as a whole, rather than mine, which is a particular brand, really. And as well as not really being particularly patriotic, I also don't really have any loyalty to brands. So I am more than happy to cede this round to your good self
Oh, thank you very much. Tip my hat
for
to you.
my lies and slander.
Do you actually like Worcestershire sauce? Oh, you must do. It's in your house.
Yeah, no, I like it on cheese on toast and
Yes.
pasta, although it
Ooh,
can sometimes get a
fascinating.
bit vinegary. Um, let's get through these other two rounds.
Yes.
So the round number two, that's just straight up numbers. How much is produced? Now, mine came a little bit weirdly, as in I couldn't find a good. There wasn't like there's X amount of Worcester sauce produced in the country. So I had to
Okay.
I found a New Yorker article where it's like they're trying to explain an alien artifact to the American people. So they're trying to explain why and what is Worcester sauce. And it mentions in that article that 25 million bottles were produced in the factory in Worcester.
Okay.
So I've taken that as my number, and given that the average bottle size is 150 milliliters, I've worked out how much volume that is. 250 million bottles at 150 milliliters a pop.
Okay. And the answer is?
It is 37,500,000 litres.
Wow. That is more than I was expecting, considering how infrequently I use it in my own cooking.
Still sounds a bit patronising though, so I guess that your number's going to be several orders of magnitude larger than that one.
It's not.
Wow, that's more than I thought.
No, I'm genuinely surprised. I think I just have a patronising voice. I do apologise.
And that is also taken from the year 2000, so these numbers are, oh god, almost 20 years out of date. I hadn't considered just how long ago the year 2000 was when I made a note of this, because to me, the year 2000 is like last year.
Yeah.
But
I still think it sounds quite futuristic, in all honesty. And we are way past it.
so there we are, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my number is higher, but it's not as vastly higher as maybe my tone of voice led you to believe. It was 47.4 million litres.
Okay, that's considering that it's on the bloody flag.
Well, they do. Canada does account for 70% of global maple syrup production, and 90% of Canadian maple syrup comes from Quebec. I mean, I feel like they have something to shout about, considering they're making 70% of it. But you could almost ask why the UK doesn't put it on its flag, if we are the only country that makes Worcestershire sauce.
There's a factory also in New Jersey, at least.
Sacrilege. I get genuinely offended when British companies sell out to American companies. Like when Cadbury got bought by Kraft. Which really upsets me. And again, I'm not even that patriotic.
Well, the thing about Worcester sauce is that it doesn't change its recipe to suit regional tastes. So Coca-Cola, they change their recipe depending on where they're selling their drinks.
Yeah, and Cadbury does that as well.
Whereas clearly they either can't be bothered to, or it's some
Typical British bloody-mindedness. And I like it in this situation.
okay. And so that's another win for Canada, racking up the points in this early stage. Late stage, in fact. There's only 3 rounds.
Well, it's the mid-stage then.
There we are. That's how numbers work.
Hey.
And very finally, we've got another sort of subjective round, which is to decide how or whether the chosen sauce represents our country.
Okay. So, off the bat, it's sweet. And Canadians are very nice. or sweet. Literally, they're all so friendly. I'm a big fan of all of them. All the ones I've met anyway. Yeah, so it's sweet and sugary, which is just inviting. See, this is where I started to struggle. It's shiny and pretty, like Canada. I want you to get 3. So that's possibly my weakest argument out of it. But then finally, as we've already mentioned, it's literally on the flag. They're pretty proud of it. And it's a very recognisable symbol. And yeah, they think it's something to shout about. And it is pretty yummy, so I can't blame them.
Fair enough. I think that those are 3 solid arguments.
It's your turn to use your patronising voice. And what's your rebuttal for the UK?
Okay, so how does Worcester sauce represent the United Kingdom?
Worcester sauce.
It is a spicy sauce, supposedly originating in India, used to make bland food actually taste of something. Its origins are fictionalized to make a satisfying but ultimately untrue story. In these ways, Worcestershire sauce makes for a good metaphor of Great Britain. Standing on its own, British fare is largely uninspiring, but when combined with outside influences, the hidden notes in the formerly boring food are awakened, and both work in harmony to create something greater than the sum of its parts. And this was an extract from my thesis, Condamental, How Fermented Fish Pulled Brexit Britain Back from the Brink.
Oh, I kind of hope that's not a joke, but I know it is. That was good. I liked that.
So there we are. An ode to Lea Perrins.
I feel like
other sources are available. Sorry?
I feel like yours was a better representation of the country. It's very true, everything that you said. We're a pretty dull island, and have constantly had other people add their own influences on top of it. So why stop now? But yeah. No, I think the final round does go to you.
Hooray!
Yay.
At least 1 point.
Yay!
That brings us to a conclusion to our first Canadian episode 1 of season 4.
Exciting. Well, it's a good kick-off for me for the season.
Yeah, no, we're doing good. But Sarah, would you mind doing the
Yes.
rappy-uppy bits?
So if you liked us and you want to download us and keep us forever and ever, and you can also rate us 5 stars, you can do this on Apple Podcasts. That's what they've rebranded iTunes Podcast as. And then also you can like our Facebook page. We are Universal Adapter Podcast. Or you can tweet us. We are at UniAdapter.
You can also review us on Facebook and leave us fun comments to read potentially on air. And if you also want to get in touch with us in a more private way, for what purpose, I'm not one to judge, you can send us an email to universaladapterpodcast@gmail.com. Almost forgot the name of the email in the middle of saying what it was.
Well, you covered it very well.
Very professional. And hopefully next week, hopefully in 2 weeks' time, we'll see if Sarah runs away with it once again.
Bye.
Bye.